Welcome back to another Swordmaster Publications presentation. My name is Ernie Lawrence. Tonight we're going to be studying Joshua chapter 2. Now, it's an interesting study for me because growing up in Bible classes and hearing the story of Rahab the harlot and the hiding of the two spies, we get that story a lot, but sometimes we miss out on some of the details until we really start to get in and study it, kind of like this study that we're doing here. And there's a detail that has it's almost like that Mandella Effect kind of thing where you always thought it was one way, but it wasn't that way at all. It was always a different way. And I'll highlight that when I get to it, but think about this question as we go into the chapter. When Rahab told the spies, she saved them, she told them to go back, she said, "Save me when you guys come in to conquer." Who did she ask to be saved? Just think about that. Have that in your mind. And then let's read through the text, and then we'll revisit the answer to that question. So let's go ahead and get started with verse 1 here. It says, "And Joshua the son of Nun sent out to Shittim 2 men to spy secretly, saying, 'Go view the land, even Jericho.' And they went and came into a harlot's house named Rahab and lodged there." So a lot of interesting things just here in this opening verse of the chapter. You have, first of all, Joshua has taken over for Moses. Been told in the first chapter, be courageous. God has given you the land. And yet they still have to do things related to warfare. And here we have him sending in to this promised land that God has already given to them. They just have to go in and possess it. He sends in 2 spies first. That's a very normal thing to do in terms of warfare, is to send out scouts, to send out spies to where you're going to attack. So even though they believe God, they're going into the land, they believe that God has given in this land, they're still doing the things that are necessary to do it right. And so they send in these scouts, they send in these spies, and then the spies, doing essentially what is necessary to do their job, come to this harlot. And I don't know how they met her. It doesn't say how they met her or how they happened to be in her house or anything like that. But they came to this harlot's house named Rahab and lodged there. They stayed with her. And, of course, we can speculate all we want. We just aren't told the circumstances of how they did that. But when you see a couple of guys skulking about, and then you think about the idea of a prostitute in the alleyways and the shadows and all of that, it's an interesting story that I would kind of like to know about one day. But it's very interesting to me to note how this all came together. And out of all of the people in the city of Jericho, it's a harlot, it's a prostitute that survives, because when she hears about the coming of the people of Jehovah, she's the one person that believes. And it goes forward to the New Testament, and you really look at the people who were lost of the Jews and who were saved, and even getting into the Gentiles, who was lost and who was saved. And it's really not just the poor people, but the broken people, the people that saw themselves and knew themselves for what they were, of being downtrodden and knowing they were lost and knowing they had a need that really only God fulfilled. When they heard the gospel, they knew that was the thing that they needed. And so here you have this harlot. She knows what she is, she knows who she is, but she knows that there's this God that is with his people and is alive and is active. So she hides the spies, and she does a really good job of it. So I just find that whole interaction, that whole scenario, very, very interesting for me. And I'm sure that somebody will come along one day maybe and make a TV series out of some of this stuff, more beyond than just kind of like the Charlton Heston 10 Commandments or something like that. But and they'll do it, and they'll present a very thoughtful and interesting perspective of how this actually went down. So anyway, let's get on to verse 2. "And it was told the king of Jericho saying, Behold, there came men in hither tonight of the children of Israel to search out the country. So first of all, the spies, as they were making their way into the city, somebody saw them. And then however they saw them, whoever they talked to, whatever, that got reported back to the king. And understand, the Hebrew people have a specific look about them. There's a way that they look that makes them look different, and so they are recognizable. There's enough of a difference there that they are recognizable, so that, they're probably going in with cloaks over their heads, and they're just trying to come in through the front gate along with all the rest of the normal traffic, and they're not trying to make a big scene or anything. They're just trying to be travelers passing through the city as they're trying to spy things out. Somebody recognizes them as of the children of Israel, this nation of Israel, and they tell the king. And so there's this whole cloak and dagger thing going on here, and I honestly think it would make a great movie. This whole chapter here, this whole book of Joshua even would be a very interesting miniseries, if not an entire TV series, like a full-on TV series with seasons and whatnot. So anyway, that's just the entertainer in me, I guess, the guy that's doing novels and games and stuff like that. I get a little bit excited about some of that, but this is just cool. It's just a cool story, if you think about it one way, we've been going through, Genesis was cool, great history, good story time stuff, the first part of Exodus, but then you got into the last part of Exodus and Leviticus, and Numbers was kind of mix and match, and then Deuteronomy, and a lot of people, when they read those, it's like, I'm just reading law after law. Of course, our study was a lot different. I was very excited about going through those, and meant a lot to me, reading through and studying those and presenting those here for the channel. But we're not in that. And so when we get back into Joshua here, now we're getting into more of the exciting spy stuff and warfare, and there's an intensity to it that maybe we don't get when we're reading through those books of law. So anyway, the king of Jericho sent unto Rahab. So not only did they see the children of Israel come in, the two spies come in, identify them as children of Israel, but the king knew exactly where they went. They went to Rahab. So the king of Jericho sent unto Rahab, saying, Bring forth the men that are come to thee, which are entered into your house, for they came to search out all the country. So it's an interesting story. The king assumes Rahab's innocence, that she's not complicit, that she just doesn't know who they are. It's a couple strangers. She's just a prostitute. She's not really up in all of the political machinations and warfare and all of that. She's just doing the job she gets paid for, right? And so he assumes that she doesn't really know who these men are, and so he sends to her, and the messenger says, Bring forth the men that came to thee. And he assumes that the men are there for her services, and he's letting her know that these are spies, which Rahab already knows that, but the king is assuming that she doesn't, and so he tells her that they've come to search out all the country. They're here to spy for the children of Israel. But she already knows this. She already has this information. Their relationship is not a business relationship at all, and we get this from these few verses here that it wasn't about that at all, but it was because of what she already knew about the children of Israel, as we'll see here in the next few verses. But she took the two men and hid them, and said, There came men unto me, but I did not know where they were. So she tells the messenger, yeah, there was a couple of guys that came unto me, and she plays dumb. She's like, but I didn't know where they were from, and I don't know where they were. They came, it says in verse 5, And it came to pass about the time of the shutting of the gate, when it was dark, that they went out. And I don't know where they went, but if you pursue after them quickly, you'll overtake them. So, yeah, a couple guys came in. I didn't know who they were. And there's an implication there that she is implying to them that they took care of business, which isn't what happened at all. But she's allowing that playing dumb, or that I guess the assumption or the condescension of the king to shield the men that she's hiding. Oh yeah, I didn't know who they were or anything. But right before the gate was closed, they were going out. So if you hurry, you can catch them. I mean, that's almost a movie trope to see that. And so she says, hurry up and you can overtake them. Then in verse 6, but she had brought them up to the roof of the house and hid them with stalks of flax, which she had laid in order upon the roof. So she hid them up on the roof. They had to climb up on the roof. It's pretty smart, because if you hide them in the house, what if they barge in and, well, we're searching the place? Well, they're going to search through closets and under the bed and all the places to hide, and they're not going to find anybody. Why? Because they're up on the roof. So that was pretty smart. This woman is obviously not as dumb as what the king thinks she is. And because she had hid them beforehand, I think really shows that she's bright. Don't know why she's in the job that she's in, but she's obviously a woman who has her head on straight with some things that matter here. She takes in the spies. She hides them, knowing that somebody's going to come looking for them. Misdirects the people, her own people, to keep the spies safe. And then listen to what she says to these men. Before they were laid down, she came up unto them upon the roof, and she says to them, I know that Jehovah, see that word there, I know in the King James it says Lord. If you look at this, it says Lord here in the King James, but that's actually Yahweh. That's actually the name of God there. And so his name has traveled ahead of the Israelite people. They know in this land, in the land of Palestine, in the land of promise, these people know the name of Jehovah, and they know she's gonna say, these are all the things your God did. We know, and we are terrified. Okay, so she says, I know that Jehovah has given you the land. Wow. Like, that's a thing. To admit that not only do the Israelite people have confidence that God has given them this land, the people that are there, the wicked nation, that are wicked nations, plural, that they know that Jehovah God has given the Israelites this land. That's powerful. And that's the intention that God has, not only for the Israelites at this moment in history, but he wants them to be this way for the next 1,500 years until Messiah comes. To be a beacon that people hear his name throughout all of the Gentile nations, throughout the world. That's what he is desiring them to be. And had Israel remained faithful the entire time, can you imagine what it would have been like when Messiah finally came into the world? They would have been hard pressed to find somebody to take his life, honestly. But it didn't work out that way, and his own people ended up killing him. But anyway, I know that Jehovah has given you the land, and that your terror is fallen upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land faint because of you. They are terrified. For we have heard how Jehovah dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt. That was 41 years ago. And what you did to the two kings of the Amorites that were on the other side of Jordan, Sihon and Og. That's the land where the 2.5 tribes are already settled in, whom you utterly destroyed. Utterly. Completely wiped them out. Like, there's nobody left of those people in that land. They were all either killed or driven out. And as soon as we heard these things, our hearts did melt. Neither did there remain any more courage in any man because of you. For Jehovah your God, he is God in heaven above and in earth beneath. So she recognizes that Jehovah God is the God. That's what she's saying here, is I recognize that your God is real. That he is a God that actually does things. He is a living God. Nothing compared to our fake false gods made of wood and stone. So she's acknowledging that. She's recognizing that. All right. And Imagine 40 years ago, in the book of Numbers, at the beginning of the book of Numbers, when the 12 spies were sent in, if they had met someone like Rahab. Now, we don't know if Joshua and Caleb met anybody. Their faith was their own. They saw the things and they were like, yes, with God with us, we've got this. And the other 10 spies, of course, were like, no, they're all giants and we're scared. We're like grasshoppers in front of them. But these people have heard already. Because remember, it took a year. They crossed the Red Sea, and then it took a year of traveling. They got the law up on Sinai, and by that time, the message had reached them of what had happened to Egypt already. Imagine if they had met somebody like Rahab and found out that the people of the Promised Land were terrified of them. Would have been a different story. There would have been no 40 years wandering in the wilderness. But they do come to her now, and she's saying, these nations, they're all terrified of you. It doesn't matter. Our walls are irrelevant. Our giants are irrelevant. Our fighting men are irrelevant. We see that God is with you, and everybody is terrified. And that is an awesome message that's being given here. And so this is what she asked. And now remember the question asked at the beginning: Who was saved? Who did Rahab ask to be saved when they came in and marched around Jericho and took the city? Now therefore I pray you, swear unto me by Jehovah, since I have showed you kindness, that you will also show kindness unto my father's house, and give me a true token, that you will save alive my father, my mother, my brethren, and my sisters, and all that they have, and deliver our lives from death. See, growing up, I thought it was just Rahab that got saved. I mean, that's what I thought as a kid. And when you come to this and you sit down and you kind of have it pointed out to you, it wasn't just Rahab the harlot that was saved. It was, she is a kind enough person to think of her entire family, her mom and dad, her brothers and sisters, and all of their family. She's a prostitute, doesn't seem to have her own family, but man, she thinks about mom and dad, brothers and sisters, brothers plural, sisters plural, and all nieces and nephews and all of that. And that's a lot of people that she's asking to be saved because of what she did for the spies. And the men answered her, our life for yours, if you utter not this our business. In other words, you keep it quiet, and you got it. It shall be when Jehovah has given us this land that we will deal kindly and truly with you. So they give her their word. She let them down by a cord through the window, for her house was upon the town wall, and she dwelt upon the wall. And she said unto them, go to the mountain, lest the pursuers meet you, and hide yourselves there 3 days until the pursuers be returned, and afterwards you may go your way. So she's already let them down. They're having this conversation. She's still up in the house. They're down at the bottom of the wall now. And so the men kind of talking back up to her. We will be blameless of this your oath, which you have made us swear. Behold, when we come into the land, you shall bind this line of scarlet thread in the window which you did let us down by, and you shall bring your father and your mother and your brother and your father's house and all thy father's household unto thee. So gather them up. When you see us coming, put a scarlet thread on the window, and you pack your family inside this house. I don't know if the house was big. I don't know if the house was small. It was, apparently she was the only occupant, so it couldn't have been too big. It was there for the comfort of her clients, but it was just her. So how many people was she packing into this house? How big was the house? But everybody that she brought into that house when Jericho fell was saved inside that house. A very interesting look at God caring for Gentiles. You see, when we look at the Gentiles through the history from the time of course, Abraham was not a Jew, was not an Israelite, because he was the grandfather of the man whose name was changed to Israel. Isaac, not a Jew, not an Israelite. Jacob, technically not even an Israelite, because the nation itself doesn't get founded for 4 more generations when Moses leads them out of Egypt. But what is happening to the other descendants of Noah, who was a righteous man that came off of the ark? You've got 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. What's happening to those people? Is God just completely forgetting them because the Bible is focused on the Israelite people? Not at all. God doesn't want anybody to perish. And so we see not just a person who men would think is good and righteous, but a person who is a prostitute. And God sees her and sees her faith, and he saves her. And we're going to see this throughout our walk through history, that there are people, that there are bright spots in the Gentile world and the Gentile story that bump up against the Israelites, that there is a very good likelihood that we will see these people in heaven. Another one that I bring up all the time is King Nebuchadnezzar. You know, he was made to eat grass like an ox for 7 years. We woke up, yep, Jehovah is God. I would not be surprised at all to see Nebuchadnezzar in heaven. And we see more and more people throughout the historical narrative of the Bible who are not part of Israel and do not become part of Israel, that God takes care of them. Jethro is another example. Jethro is a Midianite. He's not a descendant of Jacob. He's a Gentile. And yet he hangs out with Moses for a while. And his people, the southern Midianites, were faithful people. They were Gentiles, but they were people faithful to God. So anyway, it's an interesting story, and I love the thoughts that surround and swirl around this idea of who Rahab is. So anyway, the whole household is going to be saved. And it shall be that whosoever shall go out of the doors of your house into the street, his blood shall be upon his head, and we will be guiltless. And whosoever shall be with thee in the house, his blood shall be on our head, if any hand be upon him. Now think about this for a second. It's not blood on the doorpost, but it is red. It's a scarlet thread that these people are literally hanging by here. And everybody that stayed in the house would be passed over. Now, think about that just for a moment, pointing forward to the idea of Jesus as the Passover lamb, who was slain not just for the Jews, but for all men. Is this not a type, again, pointing to that idea? That when the Messiah comes, he would not just be a blessing to the Israelite nation, but he would be a blessing to all the nations of the world. Just the unity and the harmony of the Bible is mind-blowing. There's no way that this thing was written by just humans. It's an absurd thought once you understand what the Bible is really teaching. Like, it's laughable. You don't even want to give anybody who's attacking the Bible a moment of time of credulity, of sincere, like, have you read the Bible? Do you actually understand the Bible at all? Because if you did, there's no way you could say that with a straight face. And it's just mind-blowing how unified the picture of the Bible is, as it all points to Christ and the church and all the things that come about and all the blessings that God gives us. All right. Verse 20, and if you utter this our business, then we will be quit of your oath. In other words, if you betray us, then the oath, we're free of it, which you has made us to swear. And she said, according unto your word, so be it. And she sent them away, and they departed. And she bound the scarlet line in the window. So she puts the line there immediately. And they could have been betrayed. She had the opportunity. She sent them up into the mountain for 3 days. She knew right where they were at. It would have been very easy for her to tell the king, have a change of heart. King, the spies are over on this mountain. She could have totally done that. She does not do that. And they went and they came into the mountain and abode there 3 days until the pursuers were returned. And the pursuers sought them throughout all the way, but did not find them. So the 2 men returned and descended from the mountain and passed over and came to Joshua the son of Nun, told him all the things that befell them. So they come back and they make their report. Be of a courageous heart, Joshua, because I've given you the land. Can you imagine what this report brings back and how it bolsters that courage? Yeah, Josh, we went into the land and we saw and we talked to some of the inhabitants. They know we're coming and they are terrified because they know God is with us and they know they've already lost. Just the swelling of confidence and courage to be able to go in and do what God has told them to do. Like that, I would feel invincible. If I were in that place, I'm sure they felt invincible. And they were. They had God on their side. They were invincible. Because nobody can stand against the omnipotent creator of the universe. Not somebody I really want to get on the bad side of. And they said unto Joshua, truly Jehovah has delivered into our hands all of the land, for even all of the inhabitants of the country do faint because of us. They see us coming and they are terrified. What an awesome story. What an awesome look at the beginning of this campaign into the promised land to wipe out these wicked people and to push them out of the land, to enter into the land that God had promised all the way back to Abraham 430 years ago. So anyway, that's Joshua chapter 2. Again, I'm kind of glad to be back on board doing this. Took a little break, and I'm excited to kind of get into these books of history. And I hope you are too. Look forward to comments and questions. Leave them in the comments, or you can contact me through social media or whatever. I've got a TikTok up now, Swordmaster Pub. If you want to go there, I'll leave a link in the comments for that. If you want to follow me there, I'm doing some shorts on eschatology there right now, or I have been. Isaiah and Daniel I've looked at. Probably going to switch over to a little bit of apologetics type stuff. So if you're interested in that, you can come join me there on TikTok. So anyway, that's Joshua 2, and look forward to doing Joshua 3 here pretty soon. My name is Ernie Lawrence Jr., and this has been another Swordmaster Publications presentation.